Wednesday marked the official beginning of increased autonomy for the 5 major conferences in the NCAA governance structure. The process of implementing new rules and changes to the way intercollegiate athletics are governed in their conferences are going to be taken care of here in the next few months. And I'm here with Commissioner Bob Bowlsby to find out what the recommendations are that are being made by the Big 12. Bob, are the student-athlete welfare and benefits at the top of the list?
Student-athlete welfare and benefits are at the top of the list. They have been as part of the process that we've gone through on our with the other conferences and throughout this re-governance process. Such things as scholarship up to the full cost of attendance, transitional health care, multiple year scholarships, the opportunity to come back and complete your degree on scholarship at some point later on. Certainly there's a student-athlete responsibility in all this as well, and there needs to be some mutuality in terms of how we hold one another accountable. Students need to be accountable just as coaches and administrators need to be accountable, but that's going to be the earliest thing, is developing a new covenant with student athletes that's reflective of the 21st century reality.
That's a pretty long list of things to get accomplished. What are some of the challenges when it comes to getting those changes implemented?
Well, the challenges are less today than they were a few months ago. The board acted to empower the 5 conferences. We've asserted that we have some challenges that are different than the other 200 and some schools and conferences in the NCAA's Division I, and so there are some things about which we can act on our own, and the 5 commissioners, along with the boards of directors of each of the conferences, have spent a lot of time talking about what we should be advancing and talking about the process. It's important to remember too that the 65 schools in those 5 conferences each have a vote, and that vote presumably would be cast by the president. In addition to that 65, there are 15 votes that are for student athletes. That will be 3 from each conference, and the selection processes are still being developed at the time of this taping. But the fact is, the student-athlete voice is going to be much more significant than it has been in the past, and it's not going to just be a voice, it's an opportunity to vote as well.
The issue of concussions for student athletes who compete in football is an ongoing issue. What are your thoughts about that right now?
Well, the concussion issue is being constantly addressed. I think we've made progress with the targeting rules. I think vigorous enforcement has taken the helmet as a weapon out of the game of football. We need to keep making progress. This year we made a rule that will help to protect quarterbacks. We have made rules and enforced them different as to how the indefensible player can be contacted. And so I think we've clearly made progress, and of course it bears noting that the concussion issue is not just in the sport of football. There are concussion concerns in wrestling. There are concussion concerns in soccer on the men's and women's side. There are certainly concussion concerns in both men's and women's ice hockey. And so the NCAA is doing a lot of research right now. They've put a substantial amount of money towards it. There's an initiative that is going forward along with the Department of Defense on how concussive and subconcussive blows to the head can affect long-term functionality. And so I think that it is a very important piece, and I think that eventually we will have a national rule as well as conference policies that govern concussion and concussion management.
What about the time demands that are being placed on student athletes?
Well, there isn't any question that student athletes are spending a lot of time. I think because of the exceptions that are in play, such things as treating injuries are not included in the computation of the 20 hours. I think we've just gotten very far afield. Another example is oftentimes student athletes are sent home from practice with DVDs or with a digital link to tape from the from practice, and they're expected by the next day to have reviewed that, and they are expected to have done it on their own time. I think we've gotten very far afield from the 20-hour rule, and I think at some point in time that needs to be a big part of the agenda, is how we go about thinking about the amount of time that the students put into their athletic endeavors, and also the balance between athletics and academics.
Is there consideration for helping student athletes prepare for post-collegiate careers in something other than pro sports?
Well, there certainly is, and I think we also ought to spend some time looking at the relationship between our students and people who may represent them, either as financial managers or as agents. It certainly is worth considering whether or not student athletes can actually enter the draft and go through the draft and then still return to school. I think there are always issues around those sorts of concepts that we need to think about in light of modern circumstances. But generally speaking, we haven't revamped those rules in a very long time. We haven't taken a good look at recruiting rules in general for a very long time, and so I think those things will be among the elements that we will be considering for legislative change, either on an autonomous basis or on a shared governance basis with the rest of Division I.
Well, as we wrap things up here, if these are kind of the first steps on a long road, what's next? What's the process to getting some of these proposals actually in action?
Well, I think the priority to start with what benefits student athletes is the right way to go. I think the issue of time demands is certainly a consideration. We have agreed to, as a group of 350 schools in Division I, we've agreed to take on the enforcement environment and also the transfer waiver environment, and we've said if we can't find a solution to it that's satisfactory to the 5 high visibility conferences, then we'll take that on at some point down the road as an autonomous undertaking. So I think that there are many layers of paint and varnish on this 100-year-old organization that is the NCAA, and the NCAA is nothing more than the aggregation of conferences and individual institutions that have made decisions over the years. It's not the one-eyed ogre in Indianapolis that a lot of people think it is. It's us. And so we need to take off those layers of paint and those layers of varnish and get down to our primary function and think about what our principles should be going forward. And that starts with the student athlete, and we will go about that process over the next couple of years.
Commissioner Bob Bowlsby, thanks for your time. For the Big 12 Digital Network, I'm Wendell Barnhouse.